It's time for our weekly loaf of bread, but this time I'm going to do what a ton of you suggested. I'm going to use the bread maker to make the dough instead of making it by hand. 1.5 cups of warm milk, no hotter than 110 degrees, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 2.5 teaspoons of instant yeast, mix it and let it sit for 5 minutes. I'm using 3.5 cups of bread flour. You can also use all-purpose flour. It turns out perfectly fine. Add 1 teaspoon of salt and then 2 or 3 tablespoons of room temperature butter. Normally I would be kneading this for 10 minutes, but we're using the bread maker, so we're going to put it on the dough setting, and this should take about an hour and a half. So sit back and relax.
Oh my gosh.
That got way bigger than it normally does. I'm going to grab my trusty Pullman pan. I'm going to butter the pan. Normally I don't because I let it rise in oil, but my brain is telling me to do this, so roll with it. Punch the air out per usual, then we'll roll the dough. We don't want to work the dough too much, so I'm just going to lay it flat with my hands and then roll it out with just a couple passes with the rolling pin. And then it's burrito time. You're going to roll the dough just like you would a burrito and try to really roll it tight so you don't get air pockets in between the layers. All right, we're going to stick our burrito in our bread pan. We're going to cover it and then let it do one last rise for about 45 minutes. Okay, here's the first weird thing that happened from using the bread machine instead of doing it by hand. The bread is so fluffy and airy that it literally started poking out of the side during the second rise. So I opened it up just to let a little bit of air out. And then normally after 30 minutes at 350, this is way more cooked and it just was not where it normally was at. So I put it back in for a little bit longer and waited until I saw the crispy brown that I normally see and noticed that my bread had formed this strange figure at the top that seemed to be yelling at me. I think it's a sign that I should just stick to my original recipe. Anyway, this bread looks freaking delicious. We still nailed it. But it does go to show you that even though you're using the same amount of ingredients, the way you prepare it really does change the way the bread cooks. Like always, in order to get these straight cuts that I always have, you want to wait for the bread to cool completely before you start slicing and use a sharp or serrated knife. This is not a regular plastic bag. I do use actual bread bags. It makes the bread, in my opinion, last a lot longer. So there you go, your weekly loaf of bread.